Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Village Demands inaugural Juneteenth celebration. Before we move forward, we'd like to take a moment to thank and to call on our ancestors for their blessings for this event and to ask our elders for permission to open our program. And so, elders, do we have your permission to move forward with our program? And please share that with us in chat if you can. Thank you. Today, we're gathered to recognize and celebrate Freedom Day, the day more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, when the final groups of enslaved people of African descent in Texas were informed of their rights to freedom. Juneteenth is often observed these days, with communities coming together in a park or some other open space to celebrate with music and food and to revel in the joy of each other's presence. We're virtual today, so we don't have that down home cooking or barbecue for you, but we've got the community and the art. You'll feel the music and the soul of our spoken word pieces and the other offerings that we have for you today. And we've certainly got the joy and the love of our community celebrating together. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to thank Chabot College, Monterey Peninsula College, and RSS Consulting for their sponsorship of today's event and for their partnership in our efforts to eradicate anti-Blackness in higher education. Before we begin our formal program, we have a few housekeeping items for the day. This is a Zoom webinar, so your videos are often muted and you will only be able to see and hear the panelists. Feel free, though, to tell us what institutions you're representing using that chat function on the Zoom control panel. We do want to celebrate and recognize everyone who is here in this room with us. You can use our event hashtags on social media, hashtag the Village Demands and hashtag TVD Juneteenth. The webinar will be recorded and you'll be able to access the recording at the Village Demands website and YouTube channel. Also, located on the bottom of your screen, you will see an option to turn on closed captioning. Since this is a Zoom webinar, you'll need to share any questions that you have using the Q&A feature in Zoom. We want to let you know that we've got a full program for you today. And because we want to make sure that we're able to share all of this with you and hold to our scheduled time, we might have to hold off on answering some questions until the end of the event. But please do feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A as they come to mind, and we will get you those answers at the end of the program. And don't worry, if we're not able to answer your question during the program, we will save all questions and follow up with you after the event. And now, let's begin our program and the Village Demands Juneteenth event, a celebration across the nation. We'll start our program with Mr. Landon Smith. Landon is a professor, a poet, a painter, half Mende and half Belanta and Fulani, that feeling of falling that wakes you up in a dream, the amethyst stone on your desk, Angela Davis's afro, Fanon's pocket notebook, the 710 bowling split, your favorite pillow. The kind of poetry he does is very much an abrupt snapshot journey of history, reimagining, and revolutionary honesty. The piece he will present plays with time, history, and lineage. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Landon Smith, English professor at Chabot College.
Thank you. This one is called Belanta Entourage in my Louisiana. Laid claim to Louisiana before I knew my coastal tie. Halfway knowing where I'm from is new for me. Stanza soaked in seawater, nourished by the souls again. Woke up to grandma singing to a credit scene up in Idlewild. Maybe I'm the time slippage between still dreaming and an ashtray generations apart. Staring at a sunset disappearing over horizon, wondering if a split soul ever finds peace. Dissolving into tropes, deciding if I am my great-grandfather's screams or if I am the grass fed by his last breath. I come to the river of my great-grandmother's smile looking for a turning point not soaked in stories of untold grief. in conversations I was given through hand-me-downs wrapped in the branches from family trees used for switches. Hey, didn't they drag a body to a burial plot in these overalls? Can't feel a palm dusted with addiction and coping mechanisms developed to thicken skin. In the heat of the night. Meant to forget the cold bite of darkness and ashtrays flung in moments behind closed doors and covered bruises. Maybe I'm nothing more than a future Spike Lee script, bathing in blood from paper cuts trying to discover direction somewhere other than burial plots and tree branches. But if they murder you in captions, you were never alive here anyway. Not everybody can breathe through colonization in their last breaths, choking back trauma tears. And maybe that blade of grass beneath my great-grandfather's still heart passed down forgiveness in the Louisiana that was stolen from me, that they were stolen onto, that can't hear Idlewild TV set static, but can still point to the same darkness where the bullet hole casts shadows over the river. I can't find a smile anywhere in this gravesite they call me a country. Family history washed away to shorelines filled with bottles and silence, while I'm here trying to build a bridge with blood-soaked grass and empty spaces. Can't learn a language my father doesn't know, my mother doesn't know of, my grandmother wasn't told. Maybe my dialect is less Criollo and more muffled pleas, woven into muffled speech from last breaths atop blades of grass and ship planks. But Amethyst, you have warrior in your lineage. Coming from those who resist, and Singbe PA in your name, carved into the hills of your starlight, knife etched into the world we hope to leave but doesn't exist yet. And don't be fooled thinking black capitalism gonna save you. They came up with spending power and threw mythology on the fire for you to feed like the drone you are not. Tears on your skin telling tales of how to deal with performance. Numbers might start dwindling soon. Not sure if enough tears are left for funeral marathons you may have become numb to. Branches sacrificed for murals to trace lineage on your walls. Great migration made cartography on your skin, leaving roads to the warriors left behind. Paths to Lapu steer tip before a colonizer turned breathless. Still fighting wars on the home front. Just trying to let time shift enough to funeral ash my remains. And don't let me be the piece you couldn't breathe into. And if air gets too heavy, pull your grandmother from the smoke. Dive into a healing before it's too late and you become all teeth. Before the world makes you share with strangers on playgrounds. Share pieces of you that do not replace easily. And find a way home through nation flags and warriors. But I drag my lineage through sandstorms, dirt roads, scraping knees on cement cinder blocks stacked in the way. My wrists cut deeply on the journey, saltwater stinging bones showing before someone tells me I'm healed or how to move on. When I still grasp lineage by their wrists, trying to clean off eraser dust, mixed with diamond flakes they sold back to me saying that's all our hands were good for. Losing limbs and minds within borders some European gave name to, that I should be proud of, that Singbe PA revolted to come back to. Maybe my wrist bleeds on the chains he broke just to be Spielberged in white saviorhood. I feel my lineage weighted down beneath Valongo wharf remains, only unearthed for torch lightings and medal ceremonies, paved over just to be built to cover liberation, dragging lineage to a native language, not a native language, in hopes of speaking with lineage between borders and sandstorms I was told I didn't need to know. Enough Mende for struggle, beyond diamond mines, mining through bloodlines and colonial hands, thieving as cultural practice labeled as civility. I drag lineage with dislocated wrists, separated at the broken tree branch, telling me stories in contradiction, to a tall tale pillared by monuments and sand in my shoes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Landon. Very much appreciate that. It was very heartfelt and moving, and a wonderful introduction to our program this afternoon. Next up for everyone, we have Miss Jilchristina Vest, a proud West Oakland homeowner since 2000. She's originally from Chicago and a resident of the Bay Area since 1986. Jilchristina Vest holds BAs in Black Studies, Women's Studies, and an MA in Multicultural Education from San Francisco State University and the University of San Francisco. Pre-COVID, Jill was touring the world on an amazing production team, working with amazing artists. Now, she is home in Oakland, focused on creating a one-of-a-kind mural honoring Oakland's history and the legacy of the Black Panther Party and the women who ran it. Jill is a justice warrior, a fierce activist, and a kindness queen. With the hashtag Look Up to Black Women, I would like to call forward, please, and join me in welcoming Miss Jilchristina Vest.
Thank you so much, LaKisha. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to start by thanking Dr. Stacy Thompson for including me in this beautiful program. And also thank each of you for participating in being Black culture keepers and celebrating Juneteenth. This was not something that I was able to celebrate as a child, and I feel very honored to begin celebrating it as an adult. I'm here from Oakland. I'm going to show you a few videos that explain to you what my project is about and the trajectory and the birth of things. Basically, it's a house on the corner where I commissioned an artist to put a 2,000 square foot mural on the side of my home, honoring the Say Her Name movement and the women of the Black Panther Party. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and start with one video and then move on to the next. I think what's really important in the face of injustice is just to show up. I'm going to find a way to show up, and the way that I found was to create a mural on the side of my house because I want to create something. I want to send a message that's long lasting and reaches as many people as possible. The idea came out of the rebellions that came about last summer with the murder of George Floyd and the silence around the murder of Breonna Taylor, and just a feeling of loss and a feeling of helplessness and like just deeply rooted rage and grief and not knowing where to put it. And I figured out that the one thing that I needed was joy, because I couldn't find it anywhere. All the news was negative. Everything was so heavy. And when I started thinking about what would make me joyful, I started thinking about all the beautiful art that was going up throughout Oakland. And then I realized it was going to be temporary, and so it wasn't going to be there forever. But then I also was realizing that it was memorializing grief. I walked the length of Broadway one day, and by the time I got home, I looked up at this wall in my house. I said, you know what? I'm going to put a mural on my house. And unlike the murals in downtown Oakland, nobody can take it down. So that permanence of what I wanted to celebrate when it came to being a Black woman was really different than the temporariness of the murals in downtown. And this is a celebration, this is joy, and this is our history, and it's celebrating Oakland. At the height of the membership of the Black Panther Party, 70% of the members were women. And so often, like in a lot of things, women get left out of history, and more often than that, Black women get left out of history. There would be no Black Panther Party without the women. The mural on the side of my house is going to be 30-foot tall images of Black women from the Panther Party. And then the rest of the side of the house is going to be covered with their names, with the women of the Panther Party names that we've been collecting since June. And then the other words are going to be a highlight of the over 60 survival programs that they created and ran and managed. And then the back of the house is going to be a beautiful quote from Sandra Bland. I wanted to find a way to contribute to the fight. I wanted to find a beautiful way to contribute to it. And I think that's what we all need to do. And what's been really powerful in this process is that's exactly what people in my community are doing. That I just want Black people to feel joy. And I want Black people in Oakland specifically to know that this is their place, and there's a permanence to you, there's a permanence to us, and we do not have to ask permission to be here. Part of this is my thank you to West Oakland. It's my thank you to the women of the Black Panther Party, in that I want specifically women and girls to be able to walk up to the house and look up at these 40-foot women and to stand taller. If it helps one little girl stand up straighter, then I will have succeeded.
So thank you. So next, I would like to share some images of the women of the Black Panther Party, the photographs that were used to inform the mural that were taken by Stephen Shames in the 60s and the 70s. And the photographs are accompanied by a poem that I wrote for the women while the mural was being born last fall.
This is a love letter for the women of the Black Panther Party. We need to know your names, say your names. We need to tell ourselves about you, tell our children about you, tell each other about you. This is a love letter to the women of the Black Panther Party to tell you that I exist because of you. My back does not bow because of you. I am fierce and relentless in the face of injustice because of you. I was taught by you, mentored by you, fed by you. My little girl belly was full before class, which means my brain could learn because of you. This is a love letter to the women of the Black Panther Party because in the winter I had a coat because of you. My auntie was screened for sickle cell because of you. Thousands of families ate on a regular basis because of you. Oakland got its first Black mayor because of you. This is a love letter to the women of the Black Panther Party, the comrades who sold papers, drove vans, fed elders, and clothed children. The comrades who were editors and expert marksmen, nurses, teachers, and artists. The comrades who were just teenage girls. The comrades who stood watch on the night shift. The comrades who hid their children from the police. The comrades who serve the people, body and soul. This is a love letter for you, Sister Erica, Sister Asali, Sister Cheryl, Sister Barbara. This is a love letter for Sister Yasmin, Sister Charlotte, Sister Ethel, Sister Joan. It's a love letter for Sister Norma and Sister Angela and Sister. This is a love letter for you. This is a love letter.
Okay, and if I can share one more thing that gives you kind of a live on the street idea of what the mural looks like and how people have been engaging with it over the past couple of months, dance troupes and whatnot, and then I'll come back on and have questions.
Literally what it looks like when your dreams come true. Look up to Black women.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ms. Jilchristina, for what you've done here in Oakland and for people of the African diaspora all over the world. We have two questions for you in the chat right now. The first question is, how do we support this work? How can people in the community support you?
Thank you so much. It's an excellent question. The website is westoaklandmuralproject.org, and we are still fundraising. So in order for to have the museum on my first floor, which is a new thing, it means that I have no tenants. So it means trying to figure out how to create the museum to be a tenant. We're still finishing the back of the house. So you saw some equipment in the back of the house for the Sandra Bland quote, and the mural team will be back, I think, on Thursday. So absolutely go to the website. You can support by purchasing tickets to come see the museum if you're here locally. It's going to be available for the next 2 weekends in June. So grand opening is Juneteenth, and then the last weekend of June. It'll then be open again during Black August, and it'll be open again in October for Black Panther History Month. My house sits across the street from where Huey P. Newton was killed. And in October, a bust and memorial for him is going to be going up a block from the mural. So it'll be quite a gathering place from there.
Thank you. The next question is, what are some of the features of the museum?
The museum was curated by Lisbeth Tellefson, who I've known for over 30 years and is an amazing archivist and curator, specifically gathering things around the Black Power movement and things specifically that focus on Black women in the Black Power movement. So when somebody came by one day and Rachel, the muralist, was on the wall, a woman who was just looking at the mural said, "Hey, can we go inside? Is there a museum in there? Can we go inside?" And Rachel said she just started laughing and said, "No, she lives in there. We can't go inside." And when she told me the story later on that afternoon, my tenants had just moved out, and it was very clear that the house's destiny was not done, and that the first floor was more important than somebody's apartment. So from random person walking by and saying museum, and me starting to think about the survival programs and a community center and teaching children meditation and yoga, I called Lisbeth and I asked her, "So do you think this is possible?" And she came over in one day and set up the museum. So she had all of those banners that were just in storage. Her partner is Black Panther Party member Erica Huggins, who's a teacher, and everything on the wall Erica had been using as teaching tools for years. So yeah, it's a collection of things that belong to Lisbeth, and I'm hoping that collection will grow. And you have about 30 minutes to move through the museum, and there's going to be quite a bit of information I think the majority of people don't know, because it really does focus on the survival programs, which are things that the Panthers did. At their core was their ethos that we were never really taught about.
That is so powerful. And I love that that idea came by through the spark of conversation in the community, you know, you talking to someone else. So important for us to talk to each other and exchange ideas like that. We have a few more questions. The next question is going to be, what is the quote from Sandra Bland that will be on the side of your house?
So the whole project started with me thinking about the Say Her Name movement and the murder of Breonna Taylor and the continued invisibility of Black women, not only in our amazingness and our contributions, but also in the violence that we're subjected to. And Sandra Bland's murder sparked Kimberly Crenshaw's movement, the Say Her Name movement. But because the entire project was to memorialize joy and honor the lives that Black women lead, not the manner in which we have died or passed or transitioned, I wanted to find something to send to the world about Sandra Bland while she was living. She was an amazingly beautiful, fierce, intelligent woman who was driving to her dream job at her alma mater. And she did these selfie videos. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with them, but Sandy Speaks. And she always spoke of her just love of Black people and fight for our liberation. And I called her sister to ask permission to use her words on the back of the house, and said, you know, I feel like Sandra, had she been born at a different time, she would have been a Black Panther. And so I feel like she is suited to grace this house as an ancestor. And her sister agreed with me absolutely, that she would have been a Black Panther, that she was fierce and relentless. And so during one of her Sandy Speaks selfie videos, she always opened up her videos saying, "Hello, my beautiful kings and queens." And this quote on the back of the house, which is visible by the kindergartners' playground at Prescott Elementary School, which is 2 blocks from me. And that is the absolute intention, is for them to see it. It says, "Hello, my beautiful queens and kings. Know that somebody loves you. Know that somebody cares about you, and know that somebody believes you can go out there and do great things." And the principal, Miss Booker, has agreed that the kindergartners will read it every morning. So my dreams came.
Like we might have lost you for a second. You're frozen on my end. You're back now.
There we go. I was just saying that did you hear about the kindergartners?
I did. Yes, yes.
I'll read it every morning. Yeah.
That is just absolutely beautiful. We're going to go ahead and ask just about 2 more questions and then we'll move on. But as LaKisha, our MC, said earlier in the event, we'll come back to some of these questions later at a later time in this webinar. Mm-hmm. So the next thing people want to know is, how do they get a copy of this? Some of these videos that you've played during today, how can they get a copy of that?
Well, the first one that speaks about why it was created is on the YouTube channel. That's all accessible from the website, westoaklandmuralproject.org. At the bottom, you can just click the YouTube icon and the first one should be there. The second one I just made for this event. And I think it'll be on your recording, but I wrote that poem last year and I've been wanting to put the images and the matches to it. And so you all are the first people to ever hear that poem. The Panther women have not heard it yet. So I'll share it with Erica shortly, I think. And then the last one will be on the YouTube channel as well.
Wow, well, that was like a real special privilege to be able to witness that. That was history right there, what you just showed us. And I hope the whole world is able to view that at some point. We'll do one more question, and that is, what is the name of the artist or artists who helped with the mural?
The lead artist goes by the name Wolf_Pack, and Wolf is spelled with an E on Instagram, so Wolfpack. And her name is Rachel Wolf Goldsmith. And she had a team with her, Zoe and Ignacia, 2 young Black women. And she's phenomenal. I can't say enough at her self-taught skill and the ease with which these women speak through her. She did the entire mural and all of those faces with spray paint. She did some of it live on the live stream, and she used 13 different colors of brown to create the brown-skinned women. So I thought that was pretty dope. So Rachel Wolf Goldsmith, she has a website, but it's best to find her on Instagram at Wolfpack.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Jill. We are getting so many questions flooded in, so we'll have to revisit this a little bit later in the webinar. But
I could just say too, my email and phone number are on the website. I'm very accessible. So at any point in time that somebody wants to reach me, they can shoot me an email by just going to the website and I'll get to it and respond right away. And everybody, please come see it. We're having a huge event on Juneteenth. We'll have free food and a DJ, a jumpy house. Some of the Black cowboys are coming by with their horses. And people will be seeing the museum for the first time. So it's pretty exciting.
So again, thank you so very much, Jilchristina. Everyone, you heard it. Make sure that you check out the West Oakland Mural Project in the museum. Those of you in the Bay Area can stop by this weekend. And the rest of us, we can try to schedule our vacations for August and October so we can stop by, right? Might be a little bit easier said than done, but definitely we can make sure to share the memorial and the legacy of our people and the impact of Black women and the lasting impact of the Black Panther Party. So thank you very much again, Jilchristina, and everyone, make sure that you do go and check out the website. Moving along, I would like to introduce Miss Orey Johnson, English professor at Chabot College. Orey Johnson is a professor, painter, a potter, and loves alliteration. Me too. She also loves decolonizing the higher education landscape by implementing inclusive pedagogy that unapologetically centers marginalized and underrepresented communities. She strives to make her teaching and curriculum practices the standard rather than the anomaly. For this poem, she focuses on Black joy in a world where Black trauma and oppression are consumed by the masses, seemingly for entertainment. It is imperative to preserve our joyful moments and authenticity. This poem is about celebration, celebrating Blackness in all of its multidimensional forms. Please join me in welcoming Miss Orey Johnson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that amazing intro. So the title of this poem is called Necessary Affirmations of Blackness. Do your traumas make you who you are? Maybe. But the moments of joy and happiness are just as powerful. Those moments of joy where you choose joy, where you choose Black joy, Black joy, Black joy. One of the most powerful forms of protest, Black joy. One of the most powerful forms of resistance, Black joy. In a world where everything is against you, you choose to smile. Happiness as a form of resistance, happiness and joy and light from within. Never let them dim your light. Take up space, blind them with your light. Let your voice be heard. Be you, be authentic. Choose love, choose joy. Unfiltered Black joy, the ultimate form of resistance. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are powerful, we are love, we are liberated, we are joy. Thank you.
Thank you again very much, Orey, and appreciate that and the positivity that you ended that with. So thanks again so much. At this point, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Starla Lewis. And I'm not going to tell you too much about her because I know that she will share a bit about herself as she also talks with us about the history of Juneteenth and Black studies in the country. Again, I'll leave it primarily to Dr. Lewis to share more about herself with us. But before I turn it over to her, I would like to share that she is a global educator of self-love. And as a professor emeritus, a transformational speaker, and the founder of CEL, the Celebration of Everlasting Life and Love Consulting, she lectures and facilitates trainings on life mastery, diversity, racism, sexism, and women's empowerment. And again, join me, please, in welcoming Dr. Starla Lewis.
Thank you so much. I'm having all kind of hallelujah moments, all kind of Black joy. My name is Starla Rosette Lewis, and I be love. I was born December 20th, 1949, in a colored hospital in Springfield, Missouri. I was born to teenage parents, Rose Carolyn England Lewis and Alan Lee Lewis. I was born one day after Rose's 18th birthday, so I like to think of myself as a belated birthday gift. I'm the granddaughter of Rosa Irene Ford England and Guy Littleton England, Alice Lorraine Lewis Nichols Bagley, and an unknown white man. I am the great, great, great niece of Katie Elizabeth White Boyd, who was born in 1880 on a plantation in Missouri. She was my best friend, and she was my first Black studies professor because she was living history. She lived 100 years. I am the proud mother of 3 absolutely beautiful and brilliant young women. Their names are Shetta Hay, Kalita, and Aisha. And together their names mean celebration of everlasting life and love, which is also the name of my Life Mastery Human Potential Consultancy firm. I share this with you because we are history. We are living history. And we have family that has lived history, and we need to be having conversations with them. It was my great, great, great Aunt Kate who prepared me to live in a society that would not acknowledge me, that would not recognize my genius. So she taught me how to be my own self-validation. And today I want to talk to you about Juneteenth, which is part of Black Studies. Juneteenth is this time of celebration of a historical moment that acknowledges that even when we were free, it was hidden from us. Even when we were free, there were desires to keep our labor under someone else's control. And so in Texas, in 1865, Black people finally found out that they had been freed in 1863. But when I think of Juneteenth and all the celebrations that are taking place all over the country and now the world, because we have to understand that we were a free people who was captured and literally dispersed throughout the earth. So we are everywhere. The majority of Black people in the world habla Espanol or Portuguese if they're not living on the continent. And so we are connected to Black people all over, and they are recognizing that connection to us, and therefore they too are celebrating Juneteenth, even though they're not in America. I think that's amazing. The diaspora lives. Well, in celebrating Juneteenth, we also have to remind ourselves that, I'm going to quote J. California Cooper. She's one of my favorite authors. I was born free. Some people say I was born a slave, but I was born free and made a slave shortly thereafter. In other words, freedom wasn't something that anyone could give to us because we were born that way. There's a children's book that I raised my children on. It was called The Black DCs. And it said, F is for slavery. Who can own a man? Men own themselves and no one else can. And it said, S is for slavery. Who can own a man? Men own themselves and no one else can. But it said, F is for freedom. Whatever folks say, whoever can give it can take it away. And so as we're celebrating Juneteenth, we have to recognize that we are free because we freed ourselves. We are free because of all the revolts and the resistance of centuries. We are free because we recognized our own genius and our own creativity. We learned how to make a way out of no way. And then freedom was acknowledged by the society that we live in. But we have to understand, we don't have an emancipator. We emancipated ourselves. And they had to catch up with our truth and our knowledge and our deep understanding. And that's what we have to teach our children. How do we teach this truth to our children? How did we even seek freedom when there was no evidence that we would ever be allowed to live free? How did we even come to that? Because we had something called faith. We believed in ourselves and we believed in the righteousness and victory of our struggles. And even when we thought we would never see it, we knew that our children are our children's children, our children's children's children. And so it was worth the effort. It was worth the struggle to manifest our genius, to manifest our brilliance, to manifest our truth. So how did we get to truth? Well, I said I'd be loved. I don't know a day in my life when I didn't absolutely positively know that I was loved. And that came from the people of Jim Crow, who came from the people of slavery. So how did we as a people have all this love in us? You see, well, it's when you don't allow other people to define who you are. When I started school, and we desegregated a school in Missouri after Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. I was told, when you go to school, there are gonna be some white folks who hate you simply because of the color of your skin. And they are not gonna want to see you do well. But you are not to hate them because hate only destroys the hater. Great Aunt Kate said, no one can stop you from doing anything you want to do or being anything you want to be but you. and you are to treat all people the way you want to be treated. She said, some of them will do it out of meanness, but most of them will do it out of ignorance because they don't know who you are. And then she said, child, you got to be your own self-validation. Armored with that, I learned very early how to transcend racism. And so I can't really say I have been affected personally that much by racism because what you think of me is none of my business. What I think of me is what is my business. So Black studies for me was a revelation. I was 18 years old. I was sitting in my first Black studies class at Pasadena City College. And the teacher started to teach. And I thought, I have a high school diploma. I've been to school for over 12 years. How come I've never heard any of this before? And then light bulbs started going on. One light bulb said, this is the information that you had needed as a child in order to understand why you're not inferior. I never thought I was inferior, but the messages from my society contradicted how I saw myself. And then I thought light bulb went on. This is the information that I had needed to tell my friends who I am because they kept telling me, Starla, you're not like other Black people. And I was thinking, I'm the only Black people you know. Who are you comparing me to? And then I was thinking, this is the information that my teachers needed because teachers can't teach who teachers don't know. And then I thought, this is the information that my nation needs. I'm a child of the 60s. I'm the child of Black power and Panthers and revolution. Now I'm an evolutionary, but then I was a revolutionary. And I said, this is the information that my nation needs in order to not self-destruct. And then I thought, I could do this. And that's the day I became a Black studies professor. You see, I claimed it. I said, this is what I can do. Of course, back then there were no degrees in Black studies. So my background is psychology and counseling. But one of the things I realized is that when I was 4 years old, I wanted my people to love themselves. And so I have taught Black studies with one sole purpose, and that is to teach love. And the byproduct of it that I wasn't anticipating was other people who took Black studies learned to love themselves too. And when I look at why, it's because we are all seeking the truth. We're truth seekers. We don't just go to school to get degrees. We go to school to learn how to live in the world. And the only way we can learn how to live in the world is if we're given the truth. A lot of the drug addiction and sex addiction and food addiction and addictions that we have are really because we're struggling to try to figure out how to do this thing called life. And so we need life skills, and life skills are rooted in truth. So when I think of Black studies and when I talk about Black studies, I'm talking about teaching people who they are. Now, what if I'm not Black? Why would I take Black studies? Because Black studies is teaching about the world. Who are we in the world? How have we interacted with one another in a world? What have we learned and have taken from one another in the world? How are we connected? I call it content and context. Content, what's inside the circle? Content is all the ways we be who we are. And we be different Black. We do. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a reality. But we're human. So even though we be different, we be the same. What do I mean by that? I act out my humanness from my cultural vantage points, from my cultural consciousness, from my cultural awareness. So my humanness may look different than yours. You may eat snails and I may eat pig feet. I don't, but I'm just saying. In other words, the more consciousness and awareness that we have of our own selves, the more we can see ourselves, the more we can love ourselves. You know, when I look at our children, I taught Black studies to my children because my great aunt Kay taught it to me. And I taught it to my children in very simple ways. It's not just going into a classroom. I knew I was going to have a baby. I found out when she was born, she was a girl. I wanted her first baby toy to reinforce her value and her worth. So I searched high and low for a chocolate bunny. It had the lop's ears. And I wanted that bunny because that bunny was different from the other bunnies. And I wanted her to learn to love difference in a world that was telling her she had to be the same. And then I named that bunny More Rabbit, so that as she played with More Rabbit, the power of the word is something that Black studies teach. And More Rabbit represented the Black Moors who ruled Spain for almost 700-800 years, you see. And so we could have that conversation when she was little, so that as she was growing up, she was learning her history, she was learning her culture, and she was learning to love something soft and Black, you see. I taught my youngest daughter, because she loved maps and things, how to spin the globe and find Africa. So when she was 2 years old at an academic event in a room filled with maps, she would walk around pointing to Africa and say, Africa. And then one of my colleagues who wanted to confuse her pointed to South America and said, what's that? And she looked at it and she walked back to Africa. She said, Africa. And then she pointed to South America and she goes, what's that? It looks like Africa. What? Our children's minds are brilliant. Our education dumbs them down because they don't see themselves in what they're learning. So Black studies allows students to see themselves in what they're learning. Well, what if I'm not Black? What if I'm Mexican? Then we talk about Africa's legacy in Mexico and Central America and South America and the Caribbean and the islands, and we bring it all together so we can see ourselves in one another. Well, what if I'm Creole, or if the reality is we're all connected to what? You can't get away from the Black, y'all, I hope you know. We're all connected. And so you find it in whatever that connection is. I had a white student who said, you know, what really turned me on about this class was a book called A Slave in the Family. And it was about this white man who came from wealth, whose family owned lots of plantations. And he went to the family and got the Bibles because they would write down the slave that was created through the master and the slave woman, the African woman. And he brought these people together to have a family reunion of both sides. Now, of course, everybody on both sides didn't come, but a whole lot of people came. And in that coming together, they had to acknowledge a history that we don't even talk about. And that is, America is diverse, has always been diverse, and will always be diverse. So we don't have to wonder if we need diversity training. Why? Because we're a nation of strangers. And so Black studies helps us not be so strange. It helps us see ourselves in one another, not better or worse, just real, you see. And then we have to face some of our historical challenges. So this white man was being interviewed by Brian Gumbel. Some of you might be too young to know him, but he was a newscaster. And he asked the women who were there, what does it feel like to know that your grandfathers were rapists? That was intense. But the reality is we don't talk about that truth. You know, I fast forward to Bill Clinton, who got in all that trouble about that dress. But the reality was all the presidents up to Abraham Lincoln were plantation owners. They owned the women. People are buying women right now for the same purpose. And so we have to connect the past, the present, and the future. And that's what Black studies does. When we teach the truth, we acknowledge that what was is, and it's manifesting in a different kind of way or a different kind of form. I'm doing a lot of transcending racism workshops. And the reason I'm doing them They were talking about anti-racism, but I'm not really anti-racism because I don't give it that much power. But I know that we can transcend it. And the reason I chose to do the Transcending Racism program is because that's where the healing takes place. You know, we still have to deal with the truth that brought us there, the murders, the lynchings, the burnings, the disappearances, the rapes, all those things. That's where we are today. We have to face this as part of our historical reality. Black studies helps allow us to do that. But we can do it in a way that's not accusatory. Because what happens is when we become accusatory, we also have to blame ourselves. Nothing can be done to you without your cooperation. Do we get that? And we in Black studies have got to help people understand how they become agents of their own oppression. You see, I can't point this finger at you because I got 3 pointing back at me. And so when we come together to try to transcend some of the historical hurts and pains of the past, we realize that they're not any different than the pains of the present. You see, we're celebrating Juneteenth and we're celebrating the liberation of Black people. But we have to remember one thing, even in slavery, we were free. Not all of us, but those who didn't allow it to take hold of this. Freedom is in the mind. It comes from recognizing that freedom is choice. We will choose in the positive or we'll choose in the negative, but we're going to choose something. You see, when we look to the past, not only are we survivors, but we're thrivers. I asked Dr. Naeem Akbar, I said, Dr. Akbar, why is it that Black people have such a hard time struggling? And he said, it's because we don't teach our children the truth. Once you know who you are, once you love who you are, you know that all things are possible. That all things are possible. You're not gonna blame nobody else. You're not gonna allow anybody to stop you. You're just gonna do. You know, one of my favorite statements that people say all the time is, it's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness and permission. So just do you, be you, celebrate you. I'm a little Black girl who was born during legal segregation. I'm a little Black girl who saw lots of limitations. I'm a little Black girl who saw brilliant parents, aunts, uncles, cousins not be able to live their dreams. Why? Because they believed in the limitations. You are limitless, you see, and you have to accept it and know it and be it. And Black studies provide you the foundation for answering a very important question. Where'd I come from? It's 2021, most Black children can't answer that question. Why? Because we send our children to school and we allow other people to be their only educators. Every ethnic group in America has a separate school because they know that in the traditional schools in America, they do not teach diversity. They do not teach people's history. They don't even teach Americans' history because America is so diverse. The good news is we're in an amazing time. In California, ethnic studies is being required for colleges and universities. And if the governor gets out of the way, they'll probably be required for elementary as well. What will that do for America? It will allow America to not be a nation of strangers. It will allow America to move past myths, lies, and stereotypes. It will allow Americans to see themselves in one another. Freedom is when you choose to do that before you're allowed. Before you're allowed. And so I want to acknowledge I am my own self-validation. And I want to encourage all of us to say an affirmation. I heard affirmation spoken earlier today. I was thrilled. Because we have to affirm ourselves. We have to affirm ourselves. And when I say we, that's who's ever listening. Because we don't live in a society that affirms us. It doesn't ask us, what do you want to be? I mean, who are you, who you be? It asks you what you want to be, but you already be. you already be. And so when you acknowledge that you are, you build on what you already are. When you are asked, what do you want to be? It's like you're empty, you know? And so we have to say to our children, who you be. And then we have to listen. And if we listen, we'll find the artist, we'll find the teacher, we'll find the preacher, we'll find the doctor, we'll find someone who has a trade that has not yet been discovered, because they're going to bring it, you see. So I'm going to ask everyone in the listening ear of my sound of my ear to just repeat after me. I am brilliant. Yeah, those of you with me, undo your mics. I can hear you. Stacy, undo your mic.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat it again. I am brilliant.
I am brilliant.
I am powerful.
I am
Powerful.
I am limitless.
I am limitless.
I am loved.
I am
loved.
Your brilliance is the light in which you came. Your light is to shine in the world. Your power is in your freedom to choose. Choose what is in your best interest. Your limitlessness is that you're multi-talented, multifaceted, and you're going to discover more and more of it along your journey. So you're never done. And your love is your ability to unconditionally and boundlessly accept yourself and others. I love you because I can see myself in you, and I love me. Thank you.
Ashe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. I know that we have a couple of questions and a few minutes for those as well that came through in our chat. One of them being, how do you incorporate the stigma of mental health with Black studies?
Well, this is going to be a little different because I like to think of myself as a healer. And the reason I like to think of myself as a healer is because I've been teaching for over 45 years. And so many of my students have said it was better than therapy. So many of my students have said things to me like, when I started taking your class, Miss Lewis, I had a book in which I would write down ways to kill myself. And after 2 weeks in class, I threw the book away. I had been carrying that book for 2 years. I've had students say things like, before I read your book, and the book was on, it was a speech class I was teaching, and the book was on oral communication. And my student said, I read the first chapter every week, along with the other chapters. And she said, and after finishing that book, I was able to get off of my depression medication because I was no longer depressed. In other words, truth heals. Mental health comes from mental illness on the physical comes from a lot of misinformation. Why do I have low self-esteem? Because I've been taught negative things about myself. Why do I have anxiety? Because I don't feel like I belong anywhere. Are you following me? And so a lot of mental illness, now I'm not saying all, but a lot of mental illness comes from lies. You see, lies about yourself, negative words that were said to you as a child. You're not nothing, you're just like your daddy. That impacts us. So in Black studies, for example, when I'm teaching oral communication, we have students write down the worst things that were ever said to them, and then we reframe them. And we, in a very short period of time, you'll watch students who are like this, go like this. Students in the back who move forward. I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but it's one of the answers for mental health and mental illness. When you haven't been taught to see yourself, it can make you crazy. And the best example I can give is the doll experiment that many of you've seen, where Black children are asked, which doll do you prefer? And they always pick the white doll. Not all, a few don't pick the white doll. Which is the pretty doll, they pick the white doll. Which is the smart doll, they pick the white doll. Which is the nice doll, they pick the white doll. Which doll do you look like? And then they hesitate. because they don't want to think they're ugly. They don't want to think they're not smart. They don't, but they've just identified whiteness as all those positive things. That will lead to mental illness if someone doesn't come in and correct that consciousness. And I'm talking about children of color who are of African descent, of Latin descent, et cetera. So they've used it with different groups. What is the programming? Part of our mental illness is the fact that we've all been programmed to worship whiteness and lightness, even white people. So my white students who aren't blonde talk about, you know, my sister's the pretty one and I'm the smart one. My white male students talk about, yeah, they were programmed, you got to get a blonde. In fact, there was, we found this, this video. It was a Navy recruitment video. And it was how to become an officer. So how to get in the Navy and become an officer. And the title of the video was called How to Get a Blonde. What's that got to do with the military? Let's see. And so we have to start looking at what has been our unconscious programming and how has it impacted us? How come, you know, I don't like my hair? How come I don't like my lips, my nose, my shape? Well, now we like the shape because everybody's trying to get that shape. But you understand what I'm saying? And so that leads to a lot of mental illness. How come I don't like Black women? How come I don't like Black men? How come are you following me? Where is this coming? Where are these thoughts coming from? Most mental health has to do with thoughts. Most of it, not all of it. Some of it has to do with chemical imbalances and things of that nature. But most of it has to do with thoughts. And when you take medication for a thought, it's not going to correct you. It may create an illusion of you got better, but it doesn't correct those thoughts that lead us to our insanities, if you will. You know, and we've got lots of history. And if you read a lot of work around Black psychology, you'll see how those thoughts, you know, you're told you're Black and ugly, Black and ugly, Black and ugly, Black. That impacts how you feel about yourself and how you move through the world. And it can lead us to self-hatred. It can lead us to self-rejection, on and on and on. So I hope that helped the mental health. And then look, my thesis when I graduated from San Diego State was on ethnotherapeutic counseling. And ethnotherapeutic counseling was a concept I came up with that simply said the best counselor for people of color is someone from their same ethnicity that's rooted in the culture. Because if you're trying to become something that is defined in another culture, it's not gonna work for you. We've seen it too many times. We have PhD parents whose brilliant PhD children committed suicide. So that's not enough to get all the accolades, to get the stars, to get the, you know, trophies, whatever. That's not enough for self-esteem. Because self-esteem, and I'm going to quote J. California Cooper again, is when you stand naked in front of your mirror after a shower and you look at yourself and you smile at yourself and you validate yourself. And as J. California Cooper says, Jay, is there anything you even think you want today? Because I'm going to see if I can get it for you. In other words, you're not looking for someone else to do it for you. Because you know you can. You can.
Thank
That's
you.
a long answer, but mental health is very important to me. And I've seen so much healing in my classrooms, so much healing in the work that I've done in the juvenile facilities. You see, so I know that, yes, we have to possibly occasionally take some drugs, but more times than not, we just need to change our thought and what we're saying to ourselves.
So we have 2 more questions. We'll try to get those, but if not, please know for the audience that After our closing, we will stay in this session, and so you'll have the opportunity for a few minutes afterwards to have your question answered. Next question, Kanye West said something about looking at ourselves and not blaming others, and he said it in the context of enslavement. He said something like slaves wanted to be there. Just to clarify, are you, Dr. Lewis, saying something similar when you say that before we blame, we ought to look at ourselves? And if so, can you give a concrete example of what you mean by looking at ourselves? If not, where do you depart from Kanye?
Okay, well, you know, I love Kanye's music. However, I see a major departure. But I also know his hurt. And I know, I'm going to just go there. And I know his mother's hurt, because the best example I can use is Kanye and his mother. His mother was a brilliant woman, a scholar, and she was also involved with Black studies. How do I know when someone's not loving themselves, they don't want to be themselves? How did she die? Trying to change everything about her that she learned was Black and ugly. Do you understand how deep that is? So there was a mental health issue there that didn't get acknowledged because she had other brilliance. And so that was never addressed. So when I say we become agents of our own oppression, I can't get mad at white people who don't like Black people when I'm watching Black people not like themselves. You tell people and you teach people who you are and how you are to be treated. You understand what I'm saying? And so I'm not blaming, and this is important, we don't need to blame anybody. What was is. Now, how do we address it? How do we deal with it? We've spent a lot of time trying to get other people to see us. Do we see us? Because we can. We spend a lot of time getting other people to allow us into their schools. But we're school builders. Do you understand? We come from the people that built the White House. We come from the people, we can build whatever we want to build. So we can, I'm not saying we shouldn't interact with other people. I'm saying that in the meantime, we can create whatever we need or want, rather than say, spend that same energy, that same genius, that same brilliance to say, can I sit next to your kid? And then watch schools create special classes in their school for our kids. Because no, you can get here but because the law says so, but we're not letting you in. And they're still only going to learn about those other kids, which is going to create some of the mental health issues that exist in our community. We got color issues. We don't talk about it. Colorism is a major issue in our society, in our community, and in our mental health issues. We don't even talk about it. How do we treat each other? And how do we treat each other based on somebody else's definitions of who we are? Because we're not self-defined. Now, I'm not saying all of us, because look, you got the Panthers. There was, that was my era. That's when I learned to accept my big hair. It's not big anymore, but it was really big. You see, when you love yourself, you're going to carry yourself in a way that no one's going to have to ask if you love yourself. You understand what I'm saying? If everything about yourself you're trying to change, maybe there's a self-rejection, you got to ask. And so I want to say this. How does Kanye and I differ? We differ because I understand the power within each individual. There is nothing you cannot do. Right now, at this moment, you have everything you will ever need to get you anything you will ever want. But if you think, oh, well, I have to get a degree from Harvard, then you'll never go to Morehouse. Are you following me? A degree is a piece of paper. It's a key to a door. So go get it from wherever you want it, but don't think that one place is going to give you all these extra advantages than another place, because you're your advantage. Your brilliance is your advantage. Do you get that? I was told by my teacher, by my counselor, by my Black Studies professor, not to major in Black Studies because it wasn't totally accepted and may not be around long. But my brain said to me, it is necessary. And anything that is necessary will maintain itself. You see the difference? My father said to me on the day I told him I was going to major in Black studies, he said, that Black SHIT is never going to get you nothing. And yet my whole life has been fulfilling my dream to teach Black studies because I would have done it for free. And they paid me. Everybody goes to work can't say that, you see. And so we have the power to make change in our lives, in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, you know. And people say, well, everybody's not gonna agree. Well, everybody's not gonna make it. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you love people. But everybody's not gonna choose, but they're free to choose. That's what freedom is. They're free to choose. So we can say people are making me or are forcing me. No, you choose. And if you choose it, then choose with joy and make it yours. You know, I know that I didn't teach Black studies the way a lot of people teach it. I know that I didn't support education the way a lot of people support it. I asked my students on the first day of class, why are you here? Most of them tell me about something about jobs and making a bunch of money. And I said, do you believe that you were born onto the planet Earth to go to school and get really good grades so you can go to more school and get some really good grades so that you can go to some more school and get a big degree and get a big job and get a big paycheck and buy big stuff and then die? And most of them say no. What is your purpose? What is your passion? You have the ability to live it, choose it, believe in yourself. Who is it? Who is the young man who was in charge of In Living Color? He created the creator of In Living Color. Wayman, one of the Wayman brothers.
Keenan Ivory Wayans.
Keenan was something like 6 units from his degree, and he wanted to drop out of school. And his father said to him, just finish your degree so you'll have something to fall back on. And Keenan said, well, no, I'm going to live my dream, because if I don't have anything to fall back on, I have to succeed. Often that good job, that, you know, extra whatever, that was the thing that slowed us down. Or sometimes just stopped us in our tracks, you know, waiting for that retirement. Because you didn't like the job that much anyway. So what are you looking forward to? Not having to go to work. You know, I retired, I don't know, 2013. I'm still here. Why? Because I didn't do it for the paycheck. I did it because I can see my people grow and I can see other people grow. You see, that's how we have to live our lives, knowing our own potentials and possibility. You know, I watch my children, you know, they went to college and one of them didn't, she chose not to. And all of them have the capacity to live their greatness, all of them. My granddaughter and one of my daughters, the daughter that didn't go to college, we do women's worth, multi-generational women empowerment workshops so that women can become self-defined. Because just like Black people, and Jill, I'm talking to you, just like Black people, women were not acknowledged. Even Black history does not acknowledge Black women in history, you see. So we have to become our own self-validation, but we also have to become our own self-definition, because most women are trying to be a character of what men said women are supposed to be. We're not dolls, we're not Barbies, we're not things. We're genius people. We're foundation people. And we gotta know that. So we'll be that instead of decoration. How much money do I spend on my mental health and how much money do I spend on my decorations? And that lets you know where you are, what you're thinking about, you see.
Again, thank you so very much, Dr. Lewis, for what you've shared in the question and answer session, as well as the wisdom and the guidance that you offered us in your keynote address for this group. I think, and it's been said in the chat as well that many of us are being able to move forward with greater perspective and understanding because of what you shared with us today.
I just wanted to say, I really want to say thank you for having me. I'm very, very thrilled to be here. And I also want to acknowledge The I am my own self-validation was written from the woman's workshops, but my students, I've been using it for some years now, and my students have talked about the healing properties in that because it gives them new ways to see themselves, think about themselves, and then to practice saying the positive affirmations, because we've all said the negative ones. I'm to this, I'm to that, et cetera, et cetera. A daily dose of a positive affirmation will bring you what? Joy. It will bring you joy.
Again, thank you. And thanks to everyone that's here today joining us. Big, huge appreciation for our presenters, Landon Smith, Jilchristina Vest, Orey Johnson, Dr. Starla Lewis. I also want to thank the Village Demands for coming together with this definite focus on anti-racism and for supporting and empowering our community and our institutions, to which the majority of our African-American students turn. Thank you to the Planning Committee for bringing this group together today and for this Juneteenth celebration. I wish you all the best as you move forward in this week and beyond, and that you stay strong and keep your minds free, your spaces free, and your communities free. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Abdimalik Buul to close out our event today. Dr. Buul is a professor and transfer center director in the counseling department at San Diego City College and a lecturer at San Diego State University, teaching restorative practices and conflict transformation. Amongst his many roles furthering equity and anti-racism, Dr. Buul also serves as the Vice President of Organizational Vitality with the Village Demands, and I'd like you to please welcome him this afternoon to share closing remarks.
Thank you, Sister LaKisha. And thank you all. And, you know, I'm going to be extra Black today. I apologize. Actually, I'm going to be unapologetically Black, extra Black. So Dr. Starla Lewis was my Black Studies professor. I also see Dr. Mayasa on the call here when I was 18 years old. As a young buck, still think I'm a young buck, at Mesa College, and I enrolled in the Black Studies program. And that affirmation has led me to be the man that I am today. So I just want to really thank Dr. Lewis for really setting the ground and acknowledging the necessary work that it needs to be for us to validate ourselves. It's Juneteenth, y'all, and we always talk about Black folks being reduced to a reactionary, aspect of white supremacy. Our dear sister Jilchristina put together a phenomenal mural articulating the brilliance and the fight and the freedom struggle against systematic white supremacy and racism. However, we have to know as Black folks, we are more than a revolution, we are evolution. We are the cradle of civilization, the foundation of society. So we talk about dismantling and disrupting these systems of oppression to be free. We are that freedom. We are the representation of that mere freedom that they're trying to fight. And I wonder if we also think about the fact that there are many people who are incarcerated physically, but are more mentally free, spiritually free. Folks on this call, classified professionals, I hope that you can be conscious folks that are not subjugated to a mere paycheck to liberate yourself and free yourself of the shackles of white supremacy and racism within our system. Faculty, I hope that you're fearless. Fearless faculty who look at the academic structures in the curriculum and see even this fight with critical race theory. Why is that so important? Because they know the ignorance and how that will subjugate us to our oppression. That we don't subscribe and wait for this system to liberate our people. Carter G. Woodson said, those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from teaching the biography and history. And then we don't have to wait for these people to tell us that Lewis Latimer, who created the carbon filament, the light bulb that we see every single day, was created by a Black man. That one little thing that white dude with the wig did, that didn't last that long. We all know that. That lasted 2 seconds. Even the telephone bell, the Alexander Graham Bell, the person who designed the patent for that was this Black man. That we know that the mask that we talk about as California, quote unquote, is liberated today, some way, somehow, as we come back to our normalcy and freedom, right? That the mask itself was created, the gas mask, by a Black man named Garrett Morgan. That the traffic light that we pull up on every single day, that red, that yellow, that green that we see on our Juneteenth right here, Black man did that. That when we text on our phones, that we know was a system who's alive right now, that created the VoIP technology for the gifts that we communicate in, that created the sanitation belts, that created the AC system. So when we celebrate Black folks today, we celebrate that Black lives more than matter, that Black lives save lives, that we celebrate Charles Drew, who created the blood bank. How many lives have been saved by that? How many are donated blood and had family members saved by donations of blood? Black lives more than matter. So I think about and I reflect on, read a lot of Maya Angelou. Phenomenal, phenomenal woman. And I reflect a lot on some of her most powerful quotes. And I can't just not think about the fact that she mentioned so many times, if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. Let's say it again, one more again. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. That we just, like, I can't breathe. Can I be at the table? At the table. I want to be at the dinner table. I don't want to be putting the ingredients. I want to decide who comes to the table. I don't want to be the person sending out the invitation list. What's on the menu? We ain't begging for no chairs. It's 2021, y'all. We got to get out of this mindset. We can't be shackled to our CalSTRS and our CalPERS retirements. What COVID has taught us is to be truly free, to be truly liberated, and to love ourselves unapologetically. And Dr. Lewis talked about love. You have to have enough courage to trust love one more time, always, always, and always again. And so I encourage everyone to come in and join us on the Village Demands. We have so many phenomenal programs. As our dear brother Brandon drops the chat here. And one of the ways I practice love is I bring my little princess. Come here, Daddy. Where's your crown? Get your crown. Get your crown. And I tell my little princess, I'm not gonna wait for no white kindergarten teacher to tell her she a princess. I'm not gonna. We dress every single day, and I tell her, "Come here, Daddy." Oh. And I say to her, "You are love. We manifest it." Come here, come here. And we say, "What's your name?" What's your name, Daddy? What's your name?
My name is
Summer. Say it with your chest, Daddy. My name is Princess Summer.
Princess Summer.
There you go. We want to say it with our chest. So we're not going to wait for these white folks to tell us we're kings and queens and princes and princesses. We ain't waiting for that. We have to validate ourselves and love ourselves. And so today, yes, Daddy, we have to love ourselves. So absolutely, Daddy. So I encourage everyone today to join the Village Demands, to love ourselves, to not wait for our freedom to come from other people. That we must be spiritually, mentally free. And then hopefully, we will set the world on fire with our freedom, because we know the cradle of civilization is Africa. And so I love Black people. I love y'all. Love me some Black folks. Thank you all for putting together this program. And please join the Village Demands. We'll get to have more programs, because these spaces right here that we have, ain't nothing like when Black folks come together. So come be part of the revolution. Thank y'all. Much love.
Thank you, Dr. Bull.
Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are close to our end time, and we understand that many of you may need to go ahead and move forward with the rest of your days. As promised, though, we do want to have some time at the end to answer those last remaining questions that came up, both for Jilchristina Vest and for Dr. Starla Lewis. And so in the chat, this is for Jilchristina. Or rather in the Q&A for Jilchristina. What support are you getting from the community and how are they embracing you?
Thank you. This has been amazing. The community support has been spectacular. There was a lot of conversation prior to me doing what I did because it was going to affect all of my immediate neighbors. So in an effort to not behave as colonizers behaved, I asked permission of my elder neighbors and community members and let them know what it was that I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. And it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, there's people throughout the Bay Area that have driven and come to see the mural, but my immediate community family here has been hilarious is the best word that I can describe because, you know, anytime there's a delay, there was quite a few delays last summer and, you know, I've got Sister Renee, yo, Jill, when the mural gonna start? You know, yelling at me and I'm just like, I'm trying the hardest I can, but there was everything was just checking and making sure that it was going to happen. And once it started to happen, it's been absolutely beautiful. And, you know, I have one neighbor that on a regular basis comes up my stairs and knocks on my door to let me know if somebody else is downstairs that wants to speak to me. You know, he doesn't have to do that. He could call me, he could send the people to my doorbell. But he walks up the stairs personally and says, hey, Jill, there's somebody down here from Philadelphia that wants to talk to you, or there's somebody here from San Diego that wants to talk to you. So they're very invested. And what's been so important to me about the mural is my ownership of it ends at the property line. The only thing that I own is the home. The mural is not mine. And the way in which people interact with it is not for me to say. It's not for me to give permission. The whole purpose of this mural is for us to take up space without permission. You don't have to ask to be here and you can do whatever you want to. It's a city street, it's a city sidewalk. The mural is for you. And it's been absolutely brilliant. Panthers have been coming by and young people have bringing their elders by that were part of the Panther party. People from across the country have come through. It's been phenomenal. The support really tells me and has told a lot of people that this is something that we need and something that we are longing for. And from where it started last summer with the 2020 rebellion and all the statues being pulled down and all the, you know, racist oppressors and whatnot that have been memorialized by those that benefit from racist oppressors. And then there was this whole conversation, well, you need to put up a monument to so-and-so and you need to put up a monument to so-and-so. And it's like, no, I need to put up a monument to the people that have raised me and that I honor. And instead of putting up a monument of something that has been done to me or been to us, I wanted to put up an honorment that recognizes what it looks like when we do for ourselves. Exactly what has been talked about today is the Black Panthers ethos from their heart. You know, they're not going to feed our children, so we will. We're going to educate our children. We're going to take care of our elders. We're going to protect our community. We're going to open our own schools. We're going to give medical care and dental care and glasses. We are going to do that. And there's been beautiful conversations in the community based on that. And I hope that ripple continues.
Thank you, Jilchristina. And I believe this is our last question in the afternoon and for Dr. Lewis. What do you think of the recent protests on teaching cultural studies in elementary school?
Question really is, why would people protest teaching ethnic studies? And the reality is Black studies, ethnic studies, has the same status in academia as Black people, ethnic people. And that means it has no status at all. And so we have to anticipate pushback. But the reality is we know our value and our worth. And we know that the only way integration in America will ever work is with education. That's a Malcolm X quote. Integration without education has not worked and has created a lot of conflict and challenges. And when teachers don't know the history and culture of their students, teachers are ineffective in motivating and teaching those students. And so that one of the reasons that we really have to be on top of ethnic studies, and really who decides what is taught cannot be the people who have been deciding what has been taught. Because if they knew and wanted it taught, it would have been taught. And so we have to really make sure that ethnic studies stays in the hands of ethnic people until ethnic people have been able to teach other people. Because you can't teach my truth from an academic research data perspective. How do you know that? Why can't Johnny read? Johnny can't read because of the books you're handing him. And no data is going to change that. Are you following me? I have seen children learn how to read. In fact, my first job out of college was teaching reading to Black children in a predominantly Black community who were 2 and 3 grade levels behind their reading level. And everybody by the end of summer were at reading level or higher, and I didn't know how to teach reading. So how did that happen? And I'm a teacher. If you've got students in your class that cannot read, you have to look at your materials and say, what are you asking them to read? They're still teaching Huckleberry Finn. I don't want to read that. In other words, and I've had students in my classes who younger brothers and sisters weren't doing well with reading. And I say, take them to the library, get some Black books. And the next thing you know, these kids are reading. In other words, if everything you're asking me to learn is about somebody else, then there'll be pushback. I had a group of young Black men at La Jolla High School in San Diego. That's a predominantly white affluent school. And I was doing a workshop with them, and their principal was in the classroom, and the principal listened to them. And I said, how many of you like history? And one of the young men said, I hate history. And all of them were in agreement. And I said, why? And he asked, why do you hate history? And he said, if I believe that shit, I'll end up hating myself. We don't understand that the history lessons that are being taught children of color not only offend them, but often make them feel less about themselves. In other words, our curriculum is rich with all kinds of contributions that are not acknowledged. There's a book called Africa Counts, The Origin of Mathematics. Oh, you've never seen that in your math class. You see? So it's about teaching the truth, focusing on stretching yourself beyond what you know to understand the miseducation that Carter G. Woodson talked about. And as teachers, we went through a lot to get these degrees. So we don't like to think that we learn stuff that's not true. And so we just keep perpetuating the myths, the lies, and the stereotypes, because there's truth in there. That's what a stereotype is. It's got some truth in it, but it's not the truth, you see. And so I think that's one of the major things. And I really want to acknowledge the healing question again, too. San Diego has, nationwide, has an organization called the Association of Black Psychologists. So if you're looking for a Black therapist, you can find them. This is what I retired to do. Teach teachers, train trainers, and heal healers. Why? Because if my psych training has been rooted in a Eurocentric philosophy, I'm not going to be of that much good with my people. Because I have to acknowledge the trauma, the pain of racism. And I have to have studied it and understand how we're impacted by it. And then I have to study and understand how we can release it. You know, it's the same thing as gang behavior or quote unquote criminal behavior. It's not the behavior, it's the response. It's a response. I'm not a criminal. I'm a hurt person who believes in lack and limitation. So if you have and I need, I'll take from you what you have, because I can't see my own brilliance to be able to get for me what you have in any other way. Drug addiction is rampant in this country. And we talk about Black people on drugs, but If you're not on drugs in America, if you haven't done drugs in America, you haven't been paying attention. Almost every commercial all day long is about, got a pain, here's a drug. Got a hurt, here's a drug. We got drugs for everything. And we're trying to get them younger and younger and younger, you know? And so we have to understand this, that a lot of what we call a problem is really a symptom of a deeper problem. And usually that deeper problem is very much connected to self-love and self-validation.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for joining us. We are closing, so make sure that you check out the West Oakland Mural Project Museum and website, Dr. Lewis's website, and the Village Demands website as well. And as you leave us, make sure that you are moving forward in your spaces and in your everyday life, holding your heads high, moving forward with confidence and pride, and with the knowledge of our history, our present, and our belief in our future, empowering yourselves and those around you. Take care and good afternoon.